Hello, hockey fans. We're on the air. We're at PACT-TV Studios in Duluth, and this is the Minnesota Hockey Connection. We're doing a show today before the real hockey season starts in a month, and I just want to go over some stuff that what happened last year a little bit, and some of the stuff we're going to be doing on our show this year. So far, I know I got about 10 guests that want to come on this show. I got an author on a hockey book. He's done a lot of hockey stuff in the Twin Cities, and so he has a lot to say and knowledge of the game. And so we'll have him on, and we have a lot of local people that are going to be coming on, plus a lot of high school coaches. So that's a start. So we're going to have a lot of guests this year. And plus, I'm trying to expand to a lot of different cable companies over the state. And we should have a few extra places where our show will be on. But you can always get it on YouTube. Minnesota Hockey Connection will be one place you can find it, and PACT-TV Duluth. So there's two good places. Plus, you can always get me on Facebook, and that's Minnesota Hockey Connection or Jerry Borough. That's Jerry, B as in boy, Orough. If you get on that, you're going to get a lot of hockey stuff, mostly 90%. And I will friend you then if you go to my regular name. But go on Minnesota Hockey Connection. It won't have as much hockey because I can't share a lot of stuff on my original Facebook page to the Minnesota Hockey Connection. I don't know why Facebook does that, but it does. So let's get going. Boy, what a year last year. Starting out with the Wild. I mean, their record was 46-25-11. Great season. And a big surprise was the goalie, Philippe Gustafsson. I mean, he played a heck of a year. And we still got Fleury there, so we're going to have some good goalies still. But overall, same old stuff. I mean, the Wild play good during the season, have a good record, make it to the playoffs, but then they go out in the first round. They lost to Dallas in 6 games. They started out winning a game 3-2, and then they lost to the Stars 7-3, and then they won 5-1. So after 3 games, they were ahead 2-1. But then the Stars won the next 3 games to close out the series. They won 3-2, 4-0, and 4-1. So the Wild, same old stuff. And it's kind of sad, but you know what? It's not really the problem with the manager, general manager, Bill Guerin, and the players, because just think, with that Suter-Parisi contract, the Wild still they could use this $14 million they still have to pay out for 2 more years, and that's a lot of money. They can get 3 solid players, and if they had 3 more players that are top 100 players in the National Hockey League, I'm sure they can they can win a Stanley Cup. But I don't see that happening until that contract is finished with Parisi and Suter. But we'll see. It looks like they're going to have basically the same team as they had last year. And at the end of the season, try to make a couple trades. So, but hopefully they can have a good record like they had last year and keep the fans going and a little excitement. But boy, it's hard when you can't use $14 million on new contracts with other players. UMD, okay, that's the local team, and boy, the NCHC is making some changes. I'll tell you what, that league, the NCHC, the parity is amazing, just amazing. I mean, you don't know, one team can beat any team on a given night, and it's hard to win a series any place. So I expect UMD to be maybe a little better than last year. they don't have I think they don't have the D that it takes to be a championship team right now. But hey, Scott Sandlin has done a great job up there at UMD. Look at 3 national champion teams in about 10 years there. And boy, wouldn't it be nice if they can get back to the Frozen Four? That would really be great. But they lost a couple good players. Riot Kaiser, their bestie, very offensive, which a lot of these teams need now to really score goals, because it's hard to score goals in this league. And if you don't have an offensive D's, yeah, I'm telling you, it's just tough. And then they lost a player that wanted to transfer after 1 year. He was a first-round draft pick. I think Tampa Bay had his rights. Isaiah Howard. And I really don't know why he left, or why he wasn't happy, or what the reason is. And then some sad news again. Will Francis, who was out 1 year because of cancer, worked his butt off to get back to being healthy. The cancer went away, but now it came back, so he'll be out the first half of the season. And knowing this kid, he will be back, because he's a fighter. And so our prayers go out to Will and the family on this new episode that he's going through. But some of the nice players I really liked last year: Dominic James, Ben Steves, the top goal scorer, a freshman, Blake Biondi. Boy, they're going to need him. He was out most of the season from an injury, and then Zach Stasa. That's one thing UMD has done. They've had great goalies over the last 15 years. Really, I think they had great goalies, in the last 30 years. I've met a lot of them, and their records, and it's amazing how they're getting really, really good goalies. And that's the foundation of every team. If you don't have a really good goalie, it's going to be tough to go to the end, win the championships. So that's one thing I really like about UMD, is that they always have good goalies. Another college news, Minnesota lost in the finals in Frozen Four to Quinnipiac, and that was a great team the Gophers had. I wished I was down there in Tampa for that game, and I wished the coach for Minnesota would have played their style that they played all year. Just everyone jump up and play. Every one of the D's are so offensive, but he kind of held them back in this game against Quinnipiac, and I don't know why, but that's the way he thought he could win. But a lot of people weren't happy because of that, and they thought that was the reason that the Gophers lost. But the Gophers should start out the season for sure in the top 5, but I think they might start out as number 1. And Michigan, again, is going to be another good team. Well, they'll be in the top 5 for sure, if not right up there, number 1, 2. So that's good. The Big Ten's going to really picking it up now, and they're getting some good teams now. Before it was just 1 or 2 teams in the Big Ten. And then the NCHC, the parity is very big, but Denver, is always going to be at the top. And then we'll get 1 or 2, like St. Cloud State has been up there in the last 3 or 4 years. UMD, until last year was their first season I can remember that they're under 500, but I think they can pick it up. And listen, UMD's got some nice players locally coming in, the Hermantown connection, I guess. They got Ty Nelson, the defenseman. He's pretty offensive. They got the 2 plants, Max and Zam. Zam will be coming in next year, and then Max the following year. So they're going to get some offense out of these players. And then this year, that came in a transfer in Mankato, because the coach left Mankato, Minnesota State. He went over to Wisconsin now. And so Aaron Piant is coming to Duluth. And I'll tell you what, he never really played defense until he played for the Wilderness. And his dad was a coach, assistant coach there for half a year. He came in because something happened where they needed some coaches. And mid-season there, and they switched him up to the D. And his brother's up in Winnipeg, Neil, and he's doing a great job and playing really good, and one of the top D in hockey in the National Hockey League. So Aaron's going to be out in D, and every time I watched him at D, and I was wondering why didn't they do this a long time ago? Because this kid's going to be very skilled, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him in the National Hockey League too. So UMD has some young players coming in, and we'll see. It's a work in progress now, and the parity, like I said, is amazing. These teams are getting so close that you can't tell the difference. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit what happened last year in hockey for the youth and in high school. In Pee Wees, Moorhead won Pee Wee Double A, and Maple Grove got second place. And then third place was Chaska Chanhassen over Tonka. So if you look at those four programs, they're some of the best programs in the state. I'll guarantee you they're in all four of those in the top 10 programs in the state. Then in Pee Wee A, this is kind of surprising in the last 3 years. Hibbing won again, first place in Pee Wee A over Warroad. Then Delano beat Minneapolis. So Hibbing and Minneapolis are picking up their programs. Minneapolis was in the state tournament in Class A couple years ago. So that's good to see a inner city team make it to the state tournament. And it brought in some good crowds and many hockey fans from the old days that when Minneapolis had some good teams. Minneapolis South, Southwest, Roosevelt. So there's a lot of good teams back in the old days, and now I guess they're picking it up in Minneapolis. I hope that, this is looking ahead that, hey, I think we're going to see Minneapolis again in the state tournament. But Hibbing, there's a team that was a great team for years and years and years in Class AA. And then they dropped down because they didn't have the hockey players. The numbers weren't good. But now they're picking up this program. I thought they were going to go to AA, but for high school, but they decided not to. But I see Hibbing this year be one of the better AA teams, top 10 in the AA class. Single A class in high school, because these kids are, and I see this happening for the next 3 years, for sure, because they've had some good teams. Because they won the Bantam A too, so the program must be doing something right, because they won the Pee Wee A and the Bantam A both. And Delano was second place in the Bantam A. So Delano's been in the state tournament many times, and they've had a great Class A program for about 15 years now. And then Monticello was a third place team in Bantam A over Rosal. So, and then in Bantam AA, Edina over Moorhead, then Rogers over Grand Rapids. It's good to see Grand Rapids make it to the state in Bantam. So that means there's hope up there that they can have some teams coming up in high school again. But, Edina, Moorhead, and Rogers is the up-and-coming program down in the city. So it's looking good for that west part of the cities. Pretty soon it looks like that's, besides Moorhead, that might be the only consistent teams will be out of the west side, like Edinas, Tonkas, Wazetas, Chanhassen, Chaska. Well, Chanhassen, because Chaska seems like their players transfer all the time. But they played their Pee-wees and Bantams together, Chaska and Chanhassen. And then, who else do we have up there? Rogers. So all those west side teams are solid year in and year out now. And that's where I see problems in Minnesota high school hockey, is where the Twin City teams are just they're too good, and we'll have a hard time competing from the north or outer state. So I hope, I mean, I've been talking this for a few years now, and I see it happening now, what I've been talking about. And I don't know why we're not getting the great players out of our Bantam and Pee Wee players like we used to. Like Duluth, we have about 700 players come out for youth hockey, squirts, all the squirts, Pee Wees, Bantams, mites. And so we still have the same amount of numbers, but we're not developing the way we used to. And Pee Wees and Bantam double A teams were always in the top 20 and mostly in the top 10 for years and years and years. I mean, so I just don't know what's going on, and no one really can really explain it to me. And boy, we got to do something or make changes or something to get the northern hockey back where it belongs. So high school, well, like I said, the west side, we got Tonka beat Edina for the Class AA championship. And then Andover beat Cretan Durham Hall for third place. Andover's been a very good team for many years too, so, and they got a really good coach up there. And then Class A, we got Montemita beat Warroad, which was a great game. I mean, Warroad had that one line, and I think they played like 85% of the game they're out there. And they had 2 games in a row that they went in overtime, and holy cow, were they tired. I never saw kids so tired on one team. And that's a problem when you have a very, very small school. But they had a great team that played as a team and role players and that, and it was just fun watching them, but they came a little short, and Montemita became the state championship for the second time in a few years here. I think Montemita beat Hermantown about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And then Hermantown, third place over Orono. So, like I said, I think the high school kids, the teams that really to watch now are down in the cities: Tonka, Chanhassen, Edina, Wayzata, Rogers, Maple Grove. And then outside, the only team I see being consistent year in and year out, and it's kind of funny, is Moorhead. Probably has the best system, but lately, some of their best players are leaving high school early to play juniors, when if they stayed, like even last year, they had 3 key players. They're all D1 players, and they left to play juniors. If they would have stayed, they would have had a great chance of winning the state championship, which Moorhead has never won in the state tournament history. And they came second place many times, but so it's kind of surprising to see Moorhead kids leave for juniors, but it's kind of what's happening in hockey now. And they started the Upper Midwest Elite League by John Russo, and bless his soul, he passed away, but a great promoter of high school hockey. And he's done a lot for hockey in this state and in Iowa and Wisconsin. I think he was the first commitment to when Wisconsin started their hockey program. But John started the Elite League, and the main reason for that Elite League is get the Minnesota kids more games, because junior hockey gets 60 games, where Minnesota now is 25 games plus playoffs, so they get half the numbers to play against the juniors, so they get these extra 24 games, and they keep the elite players in the fall instead of going to juniors and not coming back for high school. But lately, it's unbelievable. There's going to be about 40 kids that'll be playing juniors, and I'll guess at least half of them will come back, call it before and after, to play high school hockey. But if they're playing good, these teams will pressure these kids to stay in juniors and that and not go back to high school. It's happened many, many times, and I think it hurts the game of hockey in Minnesota. And I see down the line, if this keeps on going this way, we're going to become more of a AAA teams in Minnesota and not great high school teams. Like, this is the way it's happened back east in Michigan and that, where the only teams are the Catholic school leagues and that play high school hockey, and all the other kids play AAA. So we'll see. Keep a watch on that. But up north, here's another thing. Well, Hermantown's been great, and like everyone said, they should go to AA, but they make their choices at their school, and they're not doing anything illegal in that, but just, I don't know, a lot of people don't see it that way. But Hermantown's building a new rink. I don't know why that took so long to get the votes and the money, but it did, and now it's going to cost them probably 3 times as much if they would have done it 10 years ago. So, but finally they're going to get a new rink. It's going to be right next to the old rink, combined with the old rink. And one thing about Hermantown that I like, and they do a good job, is that they have these outside rinks, and they have these rink rats. They're out there, and those outside rinks are full. And in Duluth, when I go drive around and I go past the outside rink, there's really hardly anyone on those rinks. So I don't know what happened in Duluth. They got to get these kids to have fun, get rid of their phones or whatever, and get them outside and let them have fun and be rink rats. Because even these kids now, it's all organized hockey where they practice, but they don't get that much ice time. So they have to be rink rats or take a lot of skating, shooting, stick handling from professional teachers and that. And that's what they have in the Twin Cities. All kinds of help for that. And I know it's expensive. That's another problem, I think. And hockey's gotten way out of hand. And there's a lot of kids that can't do it. So the only way you can catch up with some of these players is get out there and be rink rats and practice your skills all day long. Anytime you have a chance, get out there. Shoot the pucks when it's not no ice and that. Shoot it 500 times, 1,000 times a day. You know, put a mattress against the garage so your parents don't get mad when you put dents in the doors and that. But do something that helps your game every day on your own. I mean, this is the way we grew up, and we had some great hockey players back at our time. And I look at the pros now. We only have 2 Minnesota kids in the top 100 scoring. That's outrageous. Something's wrong here. We should have at least 10 kids now that are on the top 100 scoring from Minnesota. But it's not, I don't know what's going on with Minnesota hockey, but we got to pick it up somehow. But another thing that's really happened that kind of surprised a lot of people, every other year, teams can go up, like single A, class single A, can go up to double A. Doesn't matter what your size of school is. And a double A school can go down if your student enrollment is at a certain level. I forget, they change it a little bit every year, but it's a little, I think it's a little over 1,200 or something. But so here's what happened this year. A lot of these single A schools got together, and they were all I'm hearing this on the street from a lot of great sources. and they've been good to me over the years. They said that all the single A schools like Hibbing, Rockridge, which is Virginia, Evelyn, Denfield, Proctor, we're all going to jump up to Class AA. And that way, we'd have 8 teams up north in Section 7. And that would get rid of probably all the Twin City teams that are in that section. And then the Twin City teams can be in their sections down in the cities. Because they're always complaining about going up and playing at Amsoil when they live in the cities and that. And they think that's unfair too. But that was the way they were thinking. Then it came the day where the high school league says you had to put your thing in by today. Well, Rockridge and Denfield went up. But the last minute, Proctor and Hibbing decided not to. So that messed up everything. So, boy. So now, and plus here's another thing. Cloquet, which has been a AA team, Class AA for many years, they decided to go down. So I think hockey in northern Minnesota is in need of a lot of help. And it's going to be a lot of people getting together and agreeing and throw out the politics to get northern hockey back where it used to be. Because right now, Cloquet program is at its lowest I've seen since the last 30 years. Denfield, those guys, Coach Jagle, Johnson, and Jarris, Ryan, they've been doing a great job over there at the Denfield, the Hunters and that, and so it's been fun watching them, but they don't have a team that's really, they're developing this new team. I mean, they're losing some top players now, and from last year they graduated, and boy, and their schedule's getting bigger. So they're up for a lot of tough games where, boy, I worry about them. And then look at Duluth Marshall. Same thing. So they're young, Marshall, but the new school, Stella Maris, they're coming in and they're looking at a hockey program. So when they come in, so I can see Duluth East and Denfield in 3-4 years merge because of these teams aren't going to be competitive with the west side of the Twin Cities. And they got to get there unless they got to go to Class A again. So let's hope that we can figure something out up north and see what goes on. Well, that's it for this week. And we start our show with a lot of guests starting in October. And so, like I said, get on Facebook, Minnesota Hockey Connection, or Jerry Borough, Jerry, B as in boy, OROUGH. So have a good week, and hockey's going to be starting. Yay.